Everyone, welcome back to more YouTube channel. It's Chris back with the Aftermath. This is the show we do when the dust has settled from the post-match reaction to Newcastle United's latest game, which happened to be an away win. That's right, you heard that right, an away win down at Spurs 2-1, a dreadful Spurs team, which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, we're going to get into this, talk about the what result, what it means, talk about the reaction of Eddie Howe, about the fan base and everything else as well, and just a little bit of realism. I'm in the rant mobile. I'm using a new little stand here, which took ages to come, by the way. Online deliveries can be a nightmare, can't they? But it took a long time to come, but hopefully you can see me okay here, and I'm free from balancing my hands and shaking and putting a thumb over the old lens and everything else as well. So let's get stuck into it. So the good side of the game, obviously the result. The result was massive. It was a must-win game for Newcastle United to climb the table, to get a bit of confidence back in the team, a bit of confidence back in the fan base as well, because contrary to what everybody was saying, certainly some of the cheerleaders in the press, there was pressure on the manager. Some of the fans were asking questions whether he's kind of reached the end of his road, and not just fans that can be dismissed away as, you know, nutcases and screaming and shouting and stuff like that. You know, proper, calm, articulate fans who have platforms as well. I listen to loads of podcasts, loads of Newcastle podcasts, loads of football podcasts, and a lot of them were asking tangible questions as to whether this was Eddie Howe coming to the end of his reign, or he's hit a wall. You know, he's been here 4 years, and that's normally the kind of shelf life of a Premier League manager, so it's normal to ask those questions. But within the fan base, such as the love for Eddie Howe, there was obviously a massive kind of two tribes go to war situation. But a win calms everything down, and there's no reason why fans should be going after other fans who questioned whether the manager is coming to the end of his tenure or whether he is running out of ideas just because Newcastle have won. Just be happy that Newcastle have won. That's the main thing. You know, I'm not on social media anymore. I've come off of it mainly for a rest, because it just doesn't give me what I need anymore. But to be honest with you, it's just a bit vile, really. It's just a channel for abuse, really, and I think it's long past the point of what it was invented for, really, but I'm not going to dwell too much on that. But the positives in the game was the performance from the players. I asked the question, are these lads playing for Eddie Howe anymore? Are they playing for this manager? And I think a lot of them showed that they were still playing for this manager. I thought absolutely brilliant performances from Jacob Ramsey in particular. One of the biggest frustrations, I think, over the last few weeks certainly is the drop-off in form of Sandro Tonali. Then all this noise around him wanting to leave. I'm massively disappointed in Sandro as a player. I think everything this club's done for him through some real difficult times of his life. And yeah, he come back and he was absolutely brilliant and helped us get a Champions League and helped us win a Carabao Cup. But it doesn't just stop at a point and go, all right, well, I've repaid my faith now, so what are you going to do for me? I know footballers are greedy and selfish and it's about money and all that, but I think there maybe is an element of homesickness with Sandro Tonali. All this talk about Arsenal and Liverpool and Man United and all that, I don't believe that. I think if or probably when Sandro Tonali leaves his football club, I think he'll go back to Italy, because I think that's probably where he wants to be. The whole transfer was a surprise anyway when it happened, and I think he's a bit of the golden boy of Italian football, so I think he'll end up going back to Italy with his lovely wife and his baby, you know, and that'll be the way it is. But when you see performances like you saw from Jacob Ramsey, would it be the end of the world if he does go? You know, and don't scream at me in the comments. I know he's a brilliant player on his day, but he's not been a brilliant player for some time now. But Jacob Ramsey came in, showed hunger, showed desire, showed energy. He's been chopping at the bit for a chance. His career at Newcastle hasn't started very well, but that was a Jacob Ramsey that we all thought we were signing last night. Quality, you know, energy, pace, tackling, aggression, and then he pops up with a really good goal, gets in a really good goal scoring position, great finish as well. I'm going to get into Anthony Gordon in a second, because I don't subscribe to this Anthony Gordon's the answer, because there is questions from this game as well. Regardless of how excited everybody is for the win, there is big questions that still need to be answered in this, and I'm going to get into them in a second. But the positives, Jacob Ramsey, absolutely brilliant performance. Joe Willock as well. I was one of many who wrote Joe Willock off, right? And I don't hide away and shy away from my opinions. I said Joe Willock was regressing quicker than my hairline, which is very quick. As you can see, I've been hit by the rain here. Joe Willock come back into the fixture, or into the fold here of the squad, and massive credit to him. The energy's back, the movement's back, the goal scoring abilities are back, and he looks like he's really come back with a point to prove, and a massive respect for Joe Willock for that. You know, I was asking on the channel the night when we had Brian on, the True Geordie, that how did we knock 20 million back for this kid? I suppose when you look at it from a business point of view, he's not played really properly for 2 years, injuries, loss of form. So 20 million for a kid you paid 28 for is probably good business. But if Joe Willock can offer this till the end of the season, he's going to be a key part of the squad. There's no doubt about it. Lewis Miley's still out injured, which is a concern. I think we miss him massively. He is definitely like the Sandro Tonali replacement, in my opinion. He looks after the ball so well, but also we need him at right back probably. But Trippier turned back the clock a little bit, and he did play really well in the game. Didn't get caught out too much. Looked vastly improved to what he's looked for the last few weeks. Now, that's the positives, right? And don't go mad, right? I'm just trying to offer a little bit of realism here, right? Spurs are one of the worst teams in the Premier League. They were shocking. No adventure, no courage, no risk, no quality. Absolutely shit. And those Spurs fans, rightly so, booed them off the park. I watched expressions after the game. I think he's brilliant anyway, to be fair. He's hilarious. But, those fans have got every right to be kicking off with Spurs. It's not working for Thomas Frank. He's got a massive injury list, to be fair. His injury list could possibly be a top 10 Premier League side. That's how good those players are that have been injured. But he is struggling and they are dropping like a stone. They offered very little. Newcastle did boss the game, and we did run the game, and we were very professional, but we didn't have to be at our best to beat that Spurs team. That's the caveat here. Be excited about the win, be happy with the win, but a little bit of realism is that they were terrible. Let's see how we play in the games to come. Let's see how we do against City at the Etihad. Now listen, we might still get beat against City at the Etihad, but if the performance is there, then we'll get to see that this team is starting to believe again, and the manager's starting to believe again, and that positivity and that energy and that aggression is all back. And that's what we want to see. You can go to City and be brilliant and still lose a game. So I'm not going to kick off if there's a bad result against City, if I can see the performance and the endeavours there. And then you've obviously got big games at home against Everton and Man United that you've got to win. The Mackham's coming up, you've got to win them. But before all that, we've got the Aston Villa FA Cup tie, which again, we'll see what the club think about this. Now, I'm torn. I'm going to get into the preview later on in the week with this, but I'm torn with this because do you kind of toss it off and concentrate on the Premier League and then the Champions League, or do you think, right, this is a real positive chance to get into Europe by either winning the FA Cup, which I know is a stretch, but Palace won it last year, so it's not impossible. We won the Carabao Cup, it's not impossible. Can we win the Cup and get into Europe, or can we even get to the final against a team that finishes in the Champions League positions and still get the European spaces? So that's a real conundrum for Eddie Howe, and we'll find out soon enough what he thinks about that. But the biggest game for me this week is going to be Carabao. Newcastle have got to get a strong result in that in the first leg to bring them back to St James's Park, and then hopefully get the job done and then get through to the next round against either Chelsea or Barcelona. So big games coming up, and you have to see if this performance continues. The players shoved Eddie Howe in front of the travelling supporters. He didn't want that limelight, but he gave it the fist pumps. The fans are right behind him. It isn't just the social media fans. I don't subscribe to that, because you heard the boos in the ground the other day. I was talking to a few lads who go to away games, and there's been boos in the away grounds as well. So, there is been unrest with the fan base because they're not like what they've seen this season, but that's a positive result, a confidence boosting result. Hopefully it can unite the fans a little bit more and we can enjoy what we're seeing once again. But one of the big questions from this game, one of the big concerns for me, and it is an argument people throw when they're backing Eddie Howe to the hilt, that he's not being backed properly in the transfer market. He's been let down. Pundits say it, fans say it, right? There was, including Willis Sula, there was 130 plus million quid's worth of strikers on the bench last night. And Anthony Gordon, a left winger who scored one goal in open play in over a year, started through the middle. And I don't subscribe to some of the, the content creators saying that Anthony Gordon's absolutely brilliant up front. He's not. He is not. He can't score goals. Is he quick? Yes. Does he cause trouble? Yes. Was he brilliant in the assist for Ramsey's goal? Yes. But he's a winger. I'd expect him to do that. That's what wingers do, not centre forwards. Centre forwards get goals. Centre forwards are goal threats. Anthony Gordon gets in positions, but he cannot finish. And the fact that we're playing our left winger through the middle, and not only that, people are saying that's the answer. I'm sorry, but that is a massive, massive red flag that you lot are sweeping under the rug here. What the hell has happened to 134 million quid's worth of centre forward on the training pitch that they can't start a game like that against a shit Spurs team where Voldemort may have got a goal, Visser may have got a goal, the Sula may have got a goal last night against them because they were crap. Outside of Mickey van der Ven, they're all over the place. Dragerson looks like an extra from Highlander, and he wasn't particularly great. Lacks pace. Asula could have ran him ragged. Visser may have found space. Voldemort could have popped a goal and got a bit of confidence up as well. Starting going through the middle worked technically, so I can't have a go at the manager too much. But that is a major problem that the club has to figure out what to do about that. You've spent the Alexander Isak money on 2 players now that you look like you've given up on, and that's a real worry. With Johan Visser, I think the knee injury's done him. I think we paid over 20 odd million quid more from than we should have done. The fact that he had no pre-season, he's paying the price for that, just like Alexander Isak is at Liverpool. The fact that he went away with his country rather than staying and training with his club, blew his knee out on a building site of a pitch, that's on Johan Visser, unfortunately. He has to take that responsibility. He's come back, he hasn't played all season. He should be as sharp as a Mach 3 on Christmas Day. He should be all over the pitch, banging in goals, movement, pace, everything. And he just looks like he makes unintelligent runs. He looks laboured, he looks tired, he looks unfit, and he looks old as well. He's only 29, should be in the peak of his powers, and that's a worry. All of Voldemort's early confidence is completely eroded away from him, completely eroded away, and that's a big issue as well. That's a major concern, because how do you get that back? If you don't set up this team to play to this guy's strengths, 69 million quid you may have just thrown down the drain. You know, he's a good player, he's a very talented player, and there's people who would sign him. You know, Bayern Munich are looking at him as a Harry Kane replacement. I'm not saying sell him, right? But there's a lot of people that would want Nick Voldemort. I want him to succeed in Newcastle because I think there's a real player in there. But it does look like he's not the player that Eddie Howe wanted in the first place. We know he wanted Ekitike, we know he wanted Šeško. He's starting to look good for Man United, isn't he? Scoring goals, good movement, good pace, good power. You know, that's the kind of athlete that Eddie Howe wanted. He didn't want a technical centre forward, but he's got one, and he needs to figure out a way how to use him. But Gordon up front worries me. It really does, because against better teams, I think that won't work at all. Spurs were terrible, and that's why Gordon probably looked good in that lineup. One of the big concerns as well is the injury to Bruno Guimaraes. This is what frustrates me about Howe as a manager. Bruno Guimaraes signalled to the bench that he didn't feel right, and the manager didn't take him off. Should have took him off straight away. Should have took him off straight away for Sandro Tonali or somebody else, whoever else. Take him off. Lewis Hall, I think, came on from in the end. Just take him off. Don't run the risk. He's too important to us. Get him straight off the pitch. He's just come back from injury. You know he goes 100 mile an hour, Bruno. He tries to burn himself out way beyond his current fitness levels. Should have took him straight off. And I understand why Howe wants him on, because that was a nervous game and he needed that win. By God, he needed that win. But should have took Bruno off, because Bruno is so important to this team. I just hope that's not a serious injury out for a long period of time. And if it is, we need Miley back fit, because Miley can then come in that midfield and hopefully give us a little something on the ball that Bruno would obviously provide previously. Very different players, but Lewis Miley's so good on the ball, grown in confidence as a player, had a great season so far. If Bruno is out, we need to get Miley back into the fold, really. But it is a great win. We've got to caveat it with the opposition. I don't think we really learned whether this team has, you know, found the magic again or turned the corner with that result last night. You know, all the people who have doubts about Eddie Howe will still have doubts about Eddie Howe. You know, that's just football, really. You know, I still have my doubts about him. I still have my doubts whether he can set this team up well enough to get us back in the Champions League. You know, I have my doubts that the players that he signed, he doesn't seem to be able to have that same magic he used to have in the training pitch with players, where he would improve players exponentially. I don't see a lot of those players improving, whether that's him, his coaching team, probably the collective unit, really. So that's a concern for me. But it's okay to raise a concern, keep it calm, keep it measured. You know, our comments are a safe place. If you think Eddie Howe walks on water and he's brilliant and you want him here for another 10 years, that's absolutely fine. That's your right as a fan. You know, if you don't want him here and you think he's kind of got as far as he can go and we need to refresh and improve, then that's absolutely fine as well. Social media doesn't allow you to have those comments, but we do in our comments. Just keep it above the belt. If you're going to be a prick, you get the flick. That's what I always say. But let's just see if this confidence boosting win can take us over the line and get the season back on track, because there is still a lot to play for. And if these players can refine the levels that they used to have, then maybe Newcastle can close that gap and get back into those European positions. I still think Champions League is too much of a stretch. I think we've left too many points on the table. I think Europa League is probably the best finish we can look for at the end of this season. But, you know, that's just my opinion. I'm entitled to it, as you are yours. But thanks for watching, guys. Remember to like and subscribe. Keep it ever more. Hype the video. Help the channel grow. And thanks for watching. We'll be back with a preview for the Villa game, and I'll be back behind the mic for the post-match against Villa. Have a good one. See you later.
Let's go! Spurs heroes celebrate. They have done it.